Welcome to the SageWorks webinar, the 30-minute expert. We'll be talking about selling more services during tax season. We're about to get started here. I'm going to give about 1 more minute for people who might be running behind to join, and we'll get started in just a minute. Welcome to the SageWorks webinar, the 30-minute expert, where we'll be talking about selling more services during tax season. My name is Zach Meyer, and I'm the marketing manager for our ProfitCent solution here. And I'm thankful that today I get to welcome you to this webinar that we hope is insightful and takes up little time. Typically we do about an hour-long webinars, but since it's tax season, we wanted to keep it short and provide as much value to you as we could. Before we jump into today's webinar, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. First, if you have any questions at all, please go into the chat box down on the right-hand side of your screen, which should be in the GoToWebinar portal, and you can just enter in any questions or thoughts that you have that myself or Chad can help answer later today. Also, I wanted to let you know that we will have 2 poll questions later on that will have to do with some of the insights that we provide and further opportunity for you to look at some of those insights at your own convenience. And then finally, I wanted to let you know that you will be getting a copy of today's webinar, that is a recorded copy, as well as the slides. So before we move into the webinar and before I introduce our speaker for today, I do want to quickly just cover a legal statement that our lawyer put together for us and that we need to show at the beginning of each webinar, mainly because we're looking at a lot of data and making suggestions from that data that we have. And the data is very future forward looking and provides insights into how you can guide your clients. So after that, just wanted to flash that real quick. We'll move on, and I would love to introduce to you today our Associations and Strategic Relationship Director, Chad Wright. Chad has been with the company for a number of years now, I think almost 10 years now, and he has worked in every corner of this office. He has worked with accountants on many different venues and avenues, and has really collected a lot of insight into the challenges and issues that they face on a day-to-day basis, and especially during tax season as they're trying to learn ways that they can expand the services that they sell and to increase revenue streams as well. So I'm pleased to introduce to you Chad Wright, who will be taking us through the content the rest of the day, and I'll be here as well joining him.
Hey, thanks, Zach, and thanks everybody that's joining today. If there's anybody on that attended part 1 of our series from last week, welcome back. Appreciate you being here. And for anybody that's new, we welcome you guys as well. So glad to have you. I know it's a busy time of year during the tax season, so we're going to try to keep this short for you guys today, give you some positive information that you can use with your tax clients during this time of year. Now, the agenda we're going to cover for today, what we're going to be looking at are techniques that will help your firm sell more services during the tax season. We want to look at how to create the context for productive conversations with clients, and really what to equip yourself with that will help to lead you to a successful selling or cross-selling of other services. So when we look at the agenda, the techniques for selling more services, what we're going to bring up and conversate are the challenges, the opportunities, and the solutions available. and we're going to help you identify opportunities to sell services. And one of these things that we're going to provide you with are some example questions to identify these opportunities to generate those conversations. We're going to help give you some insight on knowing your client's industry and why that's important in the text of these conversations. We're going to provide some do's and don'ts of conversation management when you're having these discussions with clients. Now, what we'd also like to provide you with as a takeaway for today are some industry insights to share with your clients and kind of give you some context and dialogue behind that industry, why that's important, why it's beneficial. And at the very end of today's presentation, we will be providing a tax season special offer for any of those firms that are interested in our solution or in our software going forward. Now, this is just a funny little comic here that my marketing team thought would be a good icebreaker regarding today's topic. Most CPAs, they tend to think that sales are, is an aggressive or an abrasive process, but that really isn't the reality of selling your services. When you're working with your clients and you're able to show the value, you're able to show how you can provide that value, selling services is really something that will happen naturally. You'll find they're a lot more open to discussing things that they're going to benefit from when you get into the correct context of the nature of the service itself.
Yeah, Chad, I thought this cartoon was a really good fit for the topic today, because I think a lot of times CPAs can get really nervous about selling extra services because they feel like, they're kind of charging the business castle, so to speak, and they're kind of create some tension that could take away from some future cash flow opportunities, with whether that be compliance work or even consulting work. So I thought this would be a great way for us to jump into some of the topics that you're going to cover today.
Certainly, yeah. Now, what we're going to look at to begin with is really the context of tax season, right? As we all know, it's a busy time of year, but it's filled with opportunities for firms to be able to capitalize on, but there are also challenges that can prevent you from reaping the rewards. So after discussing tax season challenges and opportunities, we want to take a quick look at what solutions you can use for overcoming challenges and capitalizing on opportunities to connect with your clients here. Now, when we look at the challenges, right, easy enough. Tax season is a busy time of year. There's a mountain of work to do. There's no denying that. One of the trends that we've noticed in working with accountants over the years is that the amount of tax work you guys are doing has been steadily increasing, but it seems like the revenue of the increased work is not necessarily proportionate. So the challenge in itself is really, it's twofold. It's, how do you make it through this tax season with the additional amount of work? But alongside of that, how do you improve your firm's other revenue streams, right, coming from cross-selling these services?
Yeah, I think that's a really key point too, with that, because in being able to open up those other revenue streams, we're actually being able to create some more ease into the future tax seasons, so that we're not having to continue to put on more and more tax work, but instead maybe can have a consistent tax season, or even decrease the amount of tax work that you're taking on when you have these other revenue streams open.
And really, Zach, the logic behind that is if you start to cross-sell services, increase your revenue, ideally down the road, you may even be doing less and less tax or compliance work and really spending more time on your advisory services where there's greater revenue to be generated there. Now, the opportunity that's provided to you, right? We have a perfect but a really busy context with the tax season. So we all know that tax season, it creates financial interest, right? Your clients are already focused on their finances. They're looking into the business. And you're already meeting with them, right? You're not having to schedule separate consultations to get them into the office. Now, since you understand their finances, you actually should understand a little bit about them and about their business, what they stand for, what they want to accomplish. So you may already be aware of their barriers that's stopping them from growing as it is. What's really great about this is that you can be the consultant or the advisor that can help them reach their goals, right? You're now going away from just being a tax preparer or a bookkeeper to actually being that trusted advisor or consultant that helps this business grow.
Yeah, and one of the two things that we've noticed in understanding how to help clients reach their goals is that you have to have not only their kind of financial metrics or data to know their business and to know them, but you also have to be able to ask the non-financial questions and really getting able to understand them. So we're going to look at some of those questions later on, like Chad had mentioned in the beginning.
All right. Now, the solutions around this, right, being able to capitalize on these opportunities can be done by providing your clients with the ability to fix issues in their business that's restraining them or their company's growth. It can really be done in two ways here. So, number one, looking at being able to provide value with industry insights. And later on at this point, this is what we're going to help to show you guys are some of these key performance indicators regarding these industries that we're looking at. So being able to communicate the insights into the marketplace itself and why that's important, why it should be comparable, but also then, once again, being that advisor that helps to bridge these insights for your client and prospects, being the connector here for how they accomplish the areas of growth that we're looking at.
Just like earlier, how we talked about showing value, and when we were showing value and how services will be sold so much easier, this is where that really comes into play, is when you're showing those insights. You're not just identifying problems, or you're not just identifying opportunities, but you're also helping your clients with the roadmap to solving those opportunities and to solving those problems, because that's really where value is delivered.
Now, let's think through ways of, how we can identify individual opportunities with each one of these clients. So I want to provide you with a little bit of framework that you can follow when you're talking with the clients themselves. So first and foremost, it's really important to understand that most of your clients are unaware of the services you offer, right? It's important to communicate not only verbally what your offerings are, but through your website and through any marketing materials you guys provide. You want to make sure you're giving them what it is that your firm can actually help the client with. So if we read this study here from CPA Trendlines, it says that 70% of buyers of accounting services were not aware of all the services their firm offered. And 80% said they wish their firm offered the services that were in fact already available from that firm. And one of the analogies, or I don't know if you want to call it sayings or whatever I like to use when I'm talking with accountants, is you guys have the ability and need to start being more proactive than reactive, right? You need to understand that your clients actually want this service and they're just not sure that you offer this. So if you are the one communicating that opportunity or that value, it's going to come across much easier than them have to ask you for that specific area, or look for another accountant that they do find that does that. Now, secondly, after you're certain that they're aware of what services you can offer, it's helpful to provide a snapshot or a look into their financial health, both the good and the bad of the business. That's equally important. Now, when they start asking questions, and that's the idea, is they're going to engage here about their financial health, you can start suggesting actions that the business could take to make improvements to the business. Obviously, these are areas that you're able to advise them in as well. So when we answer the questions as needed, right, regarding the company's overall performance, but keep it short and focused on what can be done with the information and not necessarily on the data itself. That should be your appendix or your reference item there at that point. Mm-hmm. Now, if they aren't engaging as you'd hope, as you provide the insight, you may have to nudge them a little bit, right? So it's useful to ask open-ended questions about the business and about that business owner that can increase the engagement. Encourage them to ask questions of their own. And these need to be things that are not yes or no or one or two word answers. So examples would be, what are your business goals, right? What do you want to accomplish? And that can be short-term or long-term goals, right? What keeps you up at night? Like when you leave the office or when you leave your business through the day, like what are you thinking about regarding that business that wasn't resolved during that time period? And then another example would be, if you could fix just one thing, right? Let's take minimal steps. If you could fix one thing about your business, what would it be? Allow them to really open up to you in this advisory portion here.
And what we're doing here is kind of setting the context of making sure that, one, things are communicated to your clients, what kind of services you can offer, and then two, where is their starting place when we're looking at the snapshot of their financial situation? Where are they at? So we're kind of looking at the tool bag that you have and then the existing business that's already there. And then these questions will actually help to identify ways that you can then use your toolbox to help your client's business. And a lot of times covering what's in your toolbox will actually kind of help your client to be the one who actually makes the connection before you even get there. Because they're really wanting to see their business succeed as well. It's just they don't necessarily know how what you have to offer can help them and can fix things. And so I think Chad's right on the money with some of these questions and how they help to deliver that opportunity.
Now, we want to give you some further example questions and really talk about why these are important, right? So in asking these questions, it's going to show that you care about the customer, about their business, about helping that business grow. But it's also going to give some opportunity to show that you have some insight or you actually know what you're talking about. And so think about it, if you guys are in your younger days, when you were going to interview with a firm or with a practice there, one of the things you should have done beforehand was really have some questions regarding the company or the growth of the company, right? Because it actually shows the interviewer that you've done your research, that you have a genuine interest, and that you have a concern on what that business is going to do, right? So relating that right back to your clients is going to really help to open up that line of communication. So with new clients, right, take an interest in them and their business. What made them decide to start the business, right? How has their product evolved, or how has their customer base evolved, right? Are they adapting to those changes? How do they really feel about the future of that company going forward? Have them be honest with you. Once the credibility is established and you have an existing client, let's dig a little deeper. Let's ask some more specific business questions here. Once again, what are your goals for this year, and what's your action plan, right? How are you achieving them? Do you have a battle plan here of how to reach these goals, right? That's equally as important as to having the goal itself. What challenges are you facing managing the cost of this? Now, returning to our goal of providing insights and value to your client when they're most engaged, it's really important to have an understanding of the client beyond their individual performance. It's just as important to understand the performance of the environment or the industry that they're competing within. So doing your research on the industry, on the key performance indicators within that industry, will equip you with a great question to ask as you map out and discover opportunities to provide additional services. Once you've done the research, you now have the ability to encourage your clients to help address their problems or challenge them to improve their processes using that data. Having the data available makes it harder for your client to deny that they actually need the help, which in turn is really the help that you are going to provide here. So do your research into the industry, right? Understand what some of the key performance indicators are for the industry, and we're going to provide some of that insight to you guys going forward. Encourage your clients, right? Point out areas where they're doing really well. One example would be if the company has a great liquidity ratio, let's dig deeper and explain how the company has generated such a solid cash flow here. Tell them something they don't know, right? Looking at the industry, how do they stack up versus their peers and their competitors? And last but not least, and I think this is most important, challenge your clients, right? Offer a few areas where the company could make improvements here. So an example would be, if you want to illustrate an increase in margin, how the margin impacts net profit. Perhaps you can motivate the client to make useful changes necessary to be more competitive here. Now, along with having these conversations, we want to provide you just a few simple do's and don'ts of the conversation management itself. So simple things like adding value by educating the client, right? Things we talked about earlier. Delivering insights about their industry and their business that's relative to what they're doing. One of the things I found to be most important, and I do this in my everyday in talking with accountants, is making it a conversation. Make sure you're just not on a soapbox presenting your side of the story, right? Listen to what they're saying. Ask the questions that's going to allow them to open up there. Be direct. There's no point in beating around the bush here, right? Challenge them. What are they doing? And then also, as Zach would agree with here, being in the marketing position, bring marketing materials, right? Have something direct for them to look at.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I always recommend is being able to have something that you can leave behind for a reference. It's amazing how often, once you've left something behind, months later you'll get a phone call or an email from a client who's just forgotten or hasn't had the time to really address some of the things that have been plaguing his company. But now that he has some more time or the problem's grown a little bit bigger, he is now willing to reach out to you. And so that's really important. And additionally, one of my favorite things that Chad had said here was be direct. One of the key things that you have at your fingertips is data. And really the best tool that you have in communicating is showing that data to them. And so being direct with the data that you have on their company and on their industry is going to really help open things up.
Now, the don'ts of the conversation management, right? When you're talking to the clients, don't focus on selling the service itself. Don't even pitch it unless you're asked to. They have to be genuinely interested for this to be relevant. And by all means, don't really talk about the pricing until the value itself has been communicated and understood.
Yeah, likewise, a lot of these ideas, and we recommend this all the time, is a book called The Challenger Sale, and in it references ways to basically display value to the people that you're trying to sell to, and being able to show a little bit more the reason and the opportunity behind working with you. So it's definitely something we recommend you check out.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great read for anybody trying to focus on selling additional services for sure.
As we move on, we're going to come now to a place where we're going to look at some data that Chad's going to take us through. And this is some of our data that we have in our database, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. But this is really kind of a picture that we'd like to paint for ways of opening up opportunities to have conversations to identify services to provide.
Yeah, and the industry we chose today, based on the feedback from our audience, is on construction. And so we're going to provide you with two key performance data points. The first one being the direct labor ratio, which, as you guys can see here, over the last 12 months is 16.7%. Now, this is important because if the ratio is higher than the benchmark for the industry, this client can have too many laborers, or they could be paying too much for their laborers. If the ratio is lower than the benchmark, there really could be an opportunity for them to increase efficiency by hiring more workers, or they could have a higher turnover rate and can improve employee retention by really increasing their pay. Having the knowledge into this and talking with your clients is going to, once again, establish credibility and help them understand that you know what you're talking about in regards to their business and their industry. The second data point we want to take a look at is going to be the subcontractor expense to sales over the last rolling 12 months. We're going to provide here the ratio is 39.1%. Once again, if the ratio is higher than the industry benchmark, the client could consider shifting more work to his internal direct labor force to reduce that cost. If it's lower than the benchmark, they might be wasting time of their workforce on labor that they aren't specialized in, or they aren't as efficient as completing here.
All right, with that, we're going to transition into another segment of poll questions about industries that you can find out a little bit more about in the next webinar that we do. And I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll, and you can fill that out. And this will be something that we can deliver next week on March 9th, which is Wednesday. And likewise, I just want to remind you that the data that we just looked at and the data that we have available in our database is built around KPIs, which are key performance indicators. And so those are the key things that they should be looking at as a company to know whether or not they're being successful. And it helps you to benchmark and be able to figure out ways that you can advise your clients. So we're just going to leave it open for a few more seconds now. I think we have about 50% people voted. So if you have the mouse in hand, please go ahead and vote. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And then we have one other poll question that's coming up. It's just about if you'd like to know more or get a free industry report from us, this is something that, again, will show you those key performance indicators, and we will actually kind of walk you through how to use it with clients and how to talk to them to deliver a little bit more value. So if you have a few clients and want to know more about ways to talk to them, you can request this and we'll get in contact with you. And this is something that's really useful too, because it's not limited to some of the industries we just mentioned before, but it's open up to many industries. We have over 1,400 industries. So please, if that's of interest to you, go ahead and click that. And then I'm going to close it out and we're going to go into kind of our last portion of today's webinar.
Good deal. Now, when we look at the industry data, guys, we need to have an understanding of credibility of the data itself. So everything we've been talking about up to now has been about, you know, how to sell additional opportunities, right? And what's important there is really looking at where the data comes from and why this is important. So tax return data is really not that credible because it really paints an ideal picture as opposed to an actual picture. So by taking data that's recorded from financial professionals, you're able to create conversations with your clients during the tax season. Sorry about that, guys. Which can then develop into more consistent revenue streams after it concludes. Now, where is the data actually coming from, right? We want to be able to show you automation here. So in order to be able to provide the valuable insights, we can show you how to start conversations with the clients from here. But when we're looking at the data itself, I want you to show you how we can actually choose the industry code, how we can include the key performance indicators or the industry specific areas. We also have the availability to narrow this down, right? If you want to look at specific geographic areas or sales ranges within a specific industry.
I think one of the things that's really useful with that, and Chad was kind of pointing this out, is the automation component of it. In a time when you're really busy with tax season or working with several clients, you're able to actually run reports that make you an expert instantly and provide some really key conversational points to have with your clients. And so automation is something that we found is key and really helpful to accountants. And likewise, we also have data that's very easily integrated from Excel or various other kind of accounting software like Xero, and we just recently introduced QuickBooks Online. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can get the data and bring it into what we have to offer as far as looking at industries and then benchmarking your clients based on it, and then being able to suggest and even have conversations around next steps for improving their business.
Yep. Now, adding value to your top clients during the tax season, right? So one of the things we want to offer to you guys, for anybody that's interested in SageWorks, ProfitSense, or our evaluation solution, the thing we want to offer to you guys is not only, number one, the industry data reports we discussed earlier, a couple of examples of those and how to present those to your clients, but what's really important here is that for anybody that wants to come on board now, we will actually integrate client data for you at no cost for the firm that purchases during the tax season. Now, it's going to allow you to, during the tax season, pull industry insights to add value during the client meetings. It's going to allow you to leverage insights to attract new clients, identify weaknesses in client companies. You can sell their consulting services or simply add more value as a strategic advisor. For those of you that are doing business valuations, this will help you to save time in performing those valuations themselves. Anybody that's interested, you can use the contact information below to reach out. We're happy to discuss that with you.
It's really simple too. Again, talking about the automation and being able to kind of have this be an add-on to the tax return that you offer is great for setting up conversations for after tax season and opening opportunities for new lines of revenue.
And I think that's really important. Not only are the conversations happening now, but you're really opening up those opportunities for later times in the year so that you have multiple times to meet with your clients there throughout the year. The two products we've been talking about today are our ProfitSense solution and our SageWorks valuation solution. Now, 4 takeaways here, and we're really getting really short on time, so you guys could read this as you go along, but number one, we're globally accessible, right? We're web-based, we're cloud-based. The reports are customizable, so you can generate accurate professional reports about the industry itself or about the customer's financials. The integration, as Zach talked about, is so simple, just pulling in the financials from the software you're using. And then our industry data, right? Being able to track the trends, benchmark clients, pulling that from the largest database of private company information available in the United States is so key and so important here.
And finally, we just want to say thank you for joining us today and for a little bit of insights into how to sell services and how to provide value that creates conversations. And real quick, we just have this up on the screens about some of the benefits of the products that we have, but really we enjoy hearing feedback about the webinar and about ways that we can help to continue to provide insights around tax season. So if you'd like to, you can go ahead and type into the chat box down below to save my seat, and we'll go ahead and register you for the next tax season webinar that is going to be next week, Wednesday, the 9th, and we're looking forward to that. We'll also be talking about efficiency there. Last week we talked about how to be efficient as a manager, and this week, this upcoming week, we'll be talking about how to be efficient as a whole and as individual units within the firm. So we're going to get a little bit more narrow and specific there. So if you'd like to, just go ahead and type in save my seat, and we'll sign you up for that. But I just wanted to say thank you to Chad, and thank you all for spending your time with us this afternoon.
Yep, thanks again for joining, guys.